I'm rolling.
I want to show you some of the touchpads and controls in here that you use for some of the most common functions. We can see the ambient lighting starting to kick in there as it gets dark. Power window and mirror controls. We've got these touch activated switches here for the child lock and the door locks. I mean, that's kind of neat. I still prefer a tactile button. Steering wheel controls here, these are a textured touchpad surface and not individual buttons or switches. You can see here just a little bit of a lip. And you can sort of swipe your fingers over this back and forth. It picks up on that motion, but the point is this is all one giant button and not a bunch of individual tactile switches and dials, which means this can be a little less intuitive to use at first until you've put some time in. And it works the same way over on this side with the volume and stereo controls. Again, I can swipe this way for volume up and swipe this way for volume down, or just tap the button. More touch sensitive controls here. Volume is like this, up and down. Climate control, up and down like that. If we want further control of the system, we've got to go into the sub menu here. That brings us to a bunch of different settings for the climate control there, including smart climate, which is interesting because you get access to sort of preset functions: clear the windscreen, warm up my feet, cool the cabin as quickly as possible, and so on, just at the touch of a button. Drive mode selector here. Eco, comfort, sport, or custom, triggering different changes that affect the way the vehicle drives and performs. I like sport mode, makes the most use of that electric torque. And even a touch-activated switch there for the sun visor on the panoramic moonroof. You just go like this. And that sunscreen takes a very long ride forward to block out the sun. And if we want it brighter, just a little swipe, and there it goes. Touchscreen over here for the lights as well. Front pour weather lights there. Defroster front and rear are on this control surface as well. Tap to toggle between auto, lights on, lights off. Sometimes you get storage under here. Not in this case though. Cooling system and computer modules and so on. Batteries on the floor, the motor's in the back.
Put a sandwich here?
Yeah, maybe a sandwich. So let's help you sort of visualize the size of this ID.4. In case you're wondering, you may not have seen one of these in person yet. Actually, headroom is quite decent, despite that the windshield is sort of low, and it does feel a bit coupe-like, but I've still got decent headroom. We'll just hop into the back here. Plenty of legroom, plenty of knee room here. Again, headroom is decent. It's kind of disappearing a little bit in the back. This will be the first area that you'll run out of space, will be headroom, but at 5'10", no issue for me. Folding seats. Let's just come down. Almost a flat fold. Not quite flat, but close enough. This surface is very, very easy to vacuum if you've got a dog who's getting hair all over it, like I do. Quite the interesting gear shifter here as well. Let me show you how that works. You can see here, it's actually built into the instrument cluster. So here's our cluster, here's our gear shifter. To work that, hold the brakes down, tip it forward for drive, and backwards for reverse. There's our backup camera, parking radar, and again, forward for drive, backwards for reverse, tap that for park, and that's all there is to it. You'll notice up here when we click this in a drive, see that little flash of light? We get that little light effect, and that's our signal that we're ready to drive. Of course, that's repeated down here in the instrument cluster. We can see it says ready right there. You can very easily set the maximum charging level for the battery. I'll show you how to do that here. Central display screen, of course. We're going to go into vehicle and then into charging here. There's our charging menu. This blue bar here on the bottom shows us the current state of the battery. We're currently at 79%. Now when we plug this in, what's recommended is to max out the charge at 80%, which is something like 320 kilometers, and to only allow the battery to charge to 100% when you know you're going to need it for a longer trip. Doing this in the long term can help prevent the battery from degrading over time. And so the idea is you want to keep the battery sort of away from 0% and away from 100% as much as possible. And so for your day-to-day driving, you might only charge to 80% and then allow a 100% charge if you know you're going to need it for a longer trip. And doing that over time is better for the lifespan of the battery. I do have to show you the most annoying thing about this car, and not only is it the most annoying thing about this car, it's one of the most annoying things in any car I've ever driven. Let me show you what that is. So here we have the power window switches. There's only 2 of them, even though this thing has 4 windows. So in default, this just works like a regular power window switch. There are 4 windows on this car. And when we want to work one of the back windows, what we have to do is tap on this where it says rear, wait for that chime, and it lights up in orange. Now, these same switches control the rear windows. The thing is, this switch isn't very good here. You can see I'm tapping it. You have to kind of hold it down and wait. And there's no tactile response. And this is super fiddly, because if you don't get it right, it doesn't work. If you've got the stereo on, you can't really hear that little beep effect. Listen. I just want 2 more window switches and none of this extra complication. Just figured we would check on the charging here and I'd show you something sort of cool. So we plugged in a few hours ago, several hours ago. 2 hours 35 left until we're full. And remember that communicator sort of bar that I mentioned earlier? Well, here's another way that it works. Let's turn the dome lights off here so you can see that a bit better. Another interesting way that that light bar effect works to help communicate information about the ID.4 to you. So we're looking at the charging status, 76%, and we'll be at 100% just after 11 o'clock, which is in a couple more hours. In the dark here, it actually shows you the status of your battery charge, and that is pretty cool.